Hi, I'm Marie. I debated for South for 4 years and I've coached at South in Sanford. And in this video, we are going to talk about the basics of how to beat the abolition critique. So there are three arguments that I think you should always make when hitting the abolition K. The first is that our app is a good idea. The second is the prison and policing system is good and necessary. And the third is that the alt is a bad idea. So with our affirmative is a good idea, the idea is that you have advantages already built into your affirmative. In your 1AC, you read reasons why your AF is a good idea to implement. It might be that it means that less people are in prison. It might mean that you avoid an economic collapse. It might mean that Trump is less likely to get arrested. But when you create an AF, you already have these arguments created for you. And so it's really easy to make this argument because you don't have to read any more cards. The second part of this is that saying your app is a good idea makes it really easy on yourself to answer abolition. Abolition rests on the idea that all reforms, meaning all adjustments to the criminal justice system, are bad. And that leads to a lot of people approaching answering it by saying that all adjustments to the criminal justice system are good or that the entire criminal justice system is good. But that is a really tough task and to take on, and that's a really hard argument to have to defend. The smart move and the easy move is to say, I only have to prove that my app is a good idea. I am not accountable to saying that the whole prison system is good. In fact, my app might actually make the prison system smaller, which would be in the direction of what abolitionists want, right? If you can prove this, you have disproved their theory of change. Theory of change refers to how a lot of big theories in debate and a lot of big theories in academia forward a theory for how social, political, economic change operates in society. And in abolition, their theory of change is that change can only come through abolition. It can't come through reforms. Reforms don't actually end up materially impacting the people they're intended to impact. So if you can prove that your act will create change in society, you can disprove abolition's theory of change. And from that, it should probably be a pretty easy road to winning the debate. The second argument is that the prison and policing system is good and necessary. When I say this, I don't mean that you have to defend the entire prison and policing system. I really don't want you to get up and be like, the prison and police are heavenly. They are amazing. They can do no wrong. Any judge, if their opponent responds competently, will probably be like, yeah, that's untrue. What you should be arguing is that it is a good idea to have prisons and policing in society, and more importantly, it is necessary. And so the big argument here is that there are a dangerous few. There are serial killers, there are pedophiles, there are school shooters who are really, really dangerous people and should not be allowed to live with us for the safety of the majority of the community. The only solution we have right now to that is prisons. And the only solution we will probably have long term for those people is prisons. The second point is that crime does happen. We need solutions for when crime happens, when someone gets their purse stolen or their house broken into, or when they feel like they're about to get assaulted, they need someone to call. And it would take a long, long time for any sort of comprehensive community-based solution to those issues to rise up. In the meantime, it's really important that we keep our communities safe by calling the police, by keeping the police as a body and keeping the prison as an institution. This doesn't mean that you necessarily disagree with the idea of abolition being like we should invest in things like mental health services, affordable housing, getting rid of racist cops, wearing body cameras, etc. It just means that right now, the abolition of the prison and abolition of police would only result in more violence. This can be articulated as a permutation, which means that you could say that, yes, we should do the AF and we should do the alternative at the same time. And when you say that, you mean that you can do the affirmative, whatever the affirmative is, and you can also say that we should work towards prison abolition, because the two aren't mutually exclusive. They can operate together. You could maybe decriminalize sex work and also be like, in the long term, we should get rid of prisons, but right now, prisons are somewhat necessary to keep everyone safe. The third answer is that the alt is a bad idea. The alts are generally the weakest point of any critique. I just noticed I said sport. Rip. Pretend I said spot. Um, and because they're not well thought out and they don't have a great mechanism for achieving often what the impact of the critique is. So, for example, when I was competing in debate and I was a junior, one team spent all of cross-ex asking me things like, what would happen to traffic lights in an abolitionist world? Or what would happen to fire departments? Or what would happen to road signs? What would happen if someone was caught speeding? I had a really tough time answering those questions because I didn't think about that when I was thinking about the alt. You should probably not ask the same questions, but similar ones. Think about if you meet a prison abolitionist in real life, what would you want to ask them? And ask them to your opponents in round. Cross-ex is a really great time to illuminate those flaws in the alternative. The culmination of all of these arguments, but specifically this argument, should be you being able to say that your app is better than the abolition alternative. Your app has an actual plan for how to help people, and it can actually be done because the government is able to do it. The government has the institutions and the resources to do whatever your app says you want to do, and that will actually help people. Even if the judge is like, the alt is kind of cool, kind of interesting. Right now, it is just a fantasy, and it is not a very well thought out fantasy, which is why you should not vote for the alternative, because why would you want to vote for something that isn't going to happen, they have no plan for, and would probably free some bad people? Some really basic tips for answering abolition that people tend to forget is to first off, make your arguments in the 2AC. People like to sneak attack in the 1AR or 2AR. You should give yourself time to explain your arguments by making them early. And you should also give your opponents time to respond to them, making for a good debate, and give your judge time to get to know your arguments so at the end of the debate, they know what you actually were talking about. The second is that you shouldn't rely on cards. Definitely, if you're accustomed to maybe dissad debate or counterplan debate, you're used to reading a lot of cards in a debate. In a critique debate, but in abolition debate specifically, you really want to focus on being able to explain your affirmative and being able to explain all of the reasons why your affirmative is better than the alternative. Cards are helpful. They can provide evidence for certain claims that you're making, but they shouldn't be the majority of even your 2AC, or of definitely your 1AR or 2AR. The third is to just always remember to do comparative analysis. Comparative analysis means that instead of just saying, my app is good, you say, my app is good and it's better than the abolition critique alternative because my impact is larger than them because. In a critique debate, it can get really easy to get lost in just saying all of the reasons why you think your app is good and not actually comparing it to what the alternative is offering. And if the alternative is a really fine, sweeping, comprehensive view of what society could look like, then maybe the judge will feel swayed to vote that way. But with comparative analysis, you can make specific arguments for why they should vote for you. That should be about it. I will have another lecture coming out this summer about more details and more in depth on how to answer abolition, but this should definitely get you through crafting answers and beginning to think about how you can beat the abolition K in round. Thank you.